Hi friends, Pastor Jenny here, and I have been praying and thinking about discussing this theme, and it's been hard for me to decide to talk about this because it's painful. But I want to talk a little bit about the Chris Watts case because it's troubling. And I was saying on Sunday at church that sometimes we can shy away from talking about the difficult topics, but when we do that, then we are on the side of not being courageous. So I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to do my best. And as always, I always like to add something. I like to not do what everybody else is doing. And there's not a better way that I can contribute to what has already been said about this very sad case than bringing my perspective as a minister of the gospel. And so, as for those of you that do not know, I'm going to make a very quick summary of the case. Chris Watts is a husband and father of two baby girls and the husband of a wife. They lived in Colorado. They had been married around 8 to 9 years, and they had two little girls, a 3-year-old, Cece, and a 4-year-old, Bella. Shannon, the wife, was very involved in a network marketing business, promoting health products. She had suffered chronic illnesses, debilitating autoimmune related illnesses, and after battling them with regular medicine, she got to a point that she found this Lavelle product, which really allowed her to find health. Both her and her husband lost a lot of weight. And of course, this is one of those businesses that you can work from home. It's ideal for some women that want to stay home with their kids. When I was single, I did network marketing. I did it for Amway, among other products, and it was a very rewarding experience because when you work under the concept of network marketing, you're doing more than just sales. You're helping people, teaching them how to be secure, how to talk to others, and it's a very rewarding business, but it's also a very time-consuming business. Once I finished law school, I knew that I couldn't continue doing it because it required a lot of my time. Something about network marketing businesses is that if you are able to get very early on in the business, you can develop a large enough network, and the business will require less and less time from you. If you happen to join that business when the particular product has been in the market for a while, it's going to be an uphill battle to maintain, to raise and to maintain a good income. I'm not saying this to discourage anybody. I'm just saying this to be very realistic as to network marketing. One of the things that we used to say, we said, do not let anybody steal your dream. And going back to the Shannon Watts story, boy, could that girl dream. And she reminds me a lot of me when I was younger, and when, I thought the sky was the limit. The sky is still the limit. She reminds me a lot of me because she talks a lot. And she loves helping people. I can see that in her videos. And so what happens is this Chris Watts meets this other woman and starts a very passionate sexual affair with her that reaches its top when Shannon goes to visit her family to North Carolina for 6 weeks. Of those 6 weeks, Chris only came down to visit with her 1 week. The rest of that time, he was back in Colorado working, and unfortunately, it was during that time that he took this woman, this mistress, to his home, and they engaged in what they themselves qualify as wild, several times a day sex, and he developed an obsession for her. And part of that obsession drove him to the thought that he wanted to start all over, and rather than getting a divorce, he decided to murder his wife and his baby girls. And just saying it makes me really sad, and this is why it took me so long to decide to actually make a commentary about this case. There's just a variety of topics the variety of angles that you could evaluate this from, but I'm going to evaluate it from the angles that I consider are the most important. Number one, I think it's important for me to mention that Satan is real, darkness is real. I am a believer of God, and you cannot believe in God seriously if you don't believe what he says. And he says in the Bible that the devil is real. He's a fallen angel. He's a fallen angel, and according to the Bible, he comes to steal and to hurt and to destroy. I do not believe that Satan makes us do things, but I do believe that he greatly influences us. He influences us to walk away from God. He influences us to live our lives in our own terms. He influences us, making us feel that we can do it on our own. And in so doing, he alienates us more and more and more from God. And when he does that, anything goes, including betraying the most vital, critical principles of a man that is a father and that is a husband. Think about that for a minute. I've been married for over 20 years, and one day, before friends and families and before God, I promised that I would love my husband and that I would protect him and that I would be with him no matter what. And he promised the same, that he would do the same for me. And one day, Chris and Shannon made those vows, only for him to betray her first by sleeping with somebody else, and second, by killing her. He choked his wife to death while she was sleeping in bed after coming back from a conference at 1:30 in the morning. And he then proceeded to kill his little babies. There is a lot of arguments as to where it happened. There's been some subsequent interviews where he indicates that he loaded the body of his wife and the girls were still alive, and that he drove 45 minutes into a location where he worked, where there were some humongous tanks of oil, crude oil, called also batteries. And he claims that he suffocated one of the girls, dumped her in one of those tanks, and then went back to the car and suffocated the eldest, whose name was Bella, and dumped her in another tank of oil. All of this after he had buried Shannon in a shallow grave in the same location. It is very disputable because there's a lot of police cam work that seems to indicate that at some point in the middle of the morning, before he went to that remote location, he pulled his truck, and you can see him loading the vehicle, and he's obviously carrying something big enough to be his wife's body, wrapped. You can see him loading like a gas can. He loads more stuff, but it is inconclusive whether that stuff were the bodies of his dead daughters or not. But he claims that after he strangled his wife to death, one of the little girls walked in and said, "What's wrong with Mama?" He said she's not feeling too good. And that then he took her body, loaded into her truck, loaded the girls into the truck, suffocated the baby. And then he says that when he went back to the car, the eldest one, Bella, said, "Are you going to do to me what you did to Cece?" And he describes that the little girl said, "Daddy, no." And he proceeded to, according to him, with the same blanket, suffocate his 4-year-old daughter after doing exactly the same to his 3-year-old. Yeah. And it's so interesting because when you see the police cam, at some point they go to the neighbor because the neighbor has security cameras and they want to see if anything can be seen. And it is in that footage that Chris Watts, you see him putting his hands on his head. He cannot believe it because the footage actually captures when he is back in his truck and loading it. And then something very interesting happens in the middle of Chris Watts, the neighbor, and the police watching that. Something happens and the channel briefly changes from the security camera to the guy's TV, and there is a clip of some sort of horror series. And this clip presents a fetus whose heart becomes blacker and blacker, and it presents creatures being flooded by crude, dark oil. I am not kidding you. You need to watch this footage. It's all over YouTube. It's all over the internet. And when things like this happen, I say you have to have more faith to believe that they are coincidences. I don't know if this was God's way to say, Chris, your sin has found you. And it's going to come out and it's not going to stay in the shadows. Or Satan laughing at him and saying, I pushed you, you did the dirty work, and now I'm going to enjoy to see you fall. You have just destroyed your life, you fool. I'm not, I can't guess, but I will tell you, it seems ordained. And it's very telling. Think about it. The crude oil, the fetus, his life escaping him. As he's watching by the police and by his neighbor, they were just looking at camera footage. It's incredible. 3 or 4 days before he did this, Shanann was not in the house, and he asked him to send pictures of the girls, and one of the pictures that he sent her was a doll covered with a blanket with the legs exposed. Another very creepy image that she posts online, and she says, I don't know what to make out of it, and people start joking back and forth, Chris included. Crazy stuff. Here's the deal, right? I think that Satan pushes us and applauds us while we're destroying our lives and making wrong choices that are going to alter the courses of our lives. But then when we fall, he laughs because he has accomplished his purpose. Here's a guy that had a happy marriage. Here's a guy that had a wife that adored him, that had 2 little girls that adore him, that had a baby on the way, baby Nico. How could I forget to mention him? He threw it all away because he met someone and he was enjoying sex with that person. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? He himself admits it now as he's interviewed by the police that he doesn't know what he was thinking. Well, Satan comes to steal, to hurt, and to destroy. And I'm not suggesting again that Satan made him do it, but Satan is very good at blinding us. Satan is very good at making us look at things and feel that we don't have enough, feel ungrateful, feeling that it isn't enough. And I have said in a different video that there is a gap in our lives, that there's only one person that can fill it. It's not a wife, it's not a husband, it's not a career, it's not a car, it's not a friend, it's not popularity. It's a gap that's called God. And when we push God away, we're going to try to replace that gap with a lot of things. But none of those things is going to be enough. And at some point, Chris Watts was a happily married man with a faithful, hardworking wife that loved him. They had stormed the weather of difficult medical conditions, not only for her, but for the girls. There are videos where Shanann says that when she first met him, she would lay her head on his shoulder and he would hold her. I don't think he ever expected to become the monster that he eventually became. But he did. Because we have an enemy. And he hates everything that God has established. And he knows that a man remaining faithful to a woman and a woman to a man for a prolonged period of time is going to be very hard if those two individuals do not understand the true meaning of love and do not have God as their helper. So he isolates us from God, he pushes us away, and then we lose the ability to control ourselves, to have self-control. As a married woman, in the professional world, there's no shortage of opportunities. There's not been shortage in the last 20 years of men that have shown interest. And it's very easy. And the thoughts have come to my head, at some point during the marriage, the relationship can grow stale, and Satan can be very easily can whisper to your ear, oh, you're bored. Things are not the way they used to be. I'm sure my husband has felt that way. But when we have felt that way, we've made a decision. The possibility is not there for it to be somebody else. So if things in your marriage have gotten stale, don't let them grow stale. I once had a guy that said, I have to be unfaithful to my wife because my marriage is dead. And I said, it is your responsibility. First and foremost, it was your responsibility not to allow it to die. And second, now that it's dead, you need to revive it, resurrect it. You can. Contrary to what this society says, love is not a feeling. It's a decision. And once you decide to love someone, the emotions will follow. Now, the things that feed that emotion, the things that create that magic that most of us feel when we first meet that person that we love, are basic things like spending time together, asking the other person, how was your day, and really listening, weathering storms together. And also practical things like being accountable to one another. For him to tell you where you are and you to tell him where you are. Our computer in our home is in a public space because none of us should have any issue with anybody walking behind us and see what we're watching. It closes the door to things like pornography or illicit conversations or relationships. I don't check my husband's email and he doesn't check mine. But sometimes I've left my email open in my computer and he's done exactly the same, and we have no issues whatsoever because there's nothing to hide. We live an imperfect relationship, but it's a transparent one. Now, a lot of people have said that the press has been very unfair to Nicole Kessinger, the mistress, that she really has nothing to do and that there's really no evidence that she had a hand in these murders. And although I am not here to say that she did, it is absolutely inescapable to draw a relationship, a causality, a causation between her behavior, her disregard. Now, at the beginning, apparently he lied to her and she didn't know that he was married, but it is very apparent by some emails that have been released since then that at some point she says, I want something like what you have with your wife and your little girls. I want to build a life like that. So at that point, she already knows that he's married. He already knows that he has little girls, and she is clearly saying, that is the life I want. But rather than seeking somebody else, she pursued a married man. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when we cross certain boundaries, we open the door to tragedy and calamity. And not all affairs end up in a triple, and in this case, a quadruple murder. Not all of them do. That's not what I'm suggesting. But even if they don't end up that way, they end up in disaster. Marriages are broken. Kids go from being in a wholesome home to being divided, not only physically, but emotionally. They don't know who to be loyal to. Very rarely do kids come out of a divorce or a destroyed relationship without any trauma. The couple is affected by trauma. The percentage of marriages that fail, the second marriage or the third marriages, is a lot higher because we bring baggage from broken relationships. We're hurt. We don't trust anymore. I've said before that when God establishes rules like be faithful to your wife, be faithful to your husband, and do not want somebody else's wife, God doesn't do that because of him. He does it for us, for our own good. And the truth is, had Chris remained faithful to his wife, had he resisted the temptation, and had Nicole Kessinger not persisted in a relationship with a man that she knew had a wife, 2 little girls, and a baby boy on the way, we probably would not be talking about this tragedy. Now, Chris got lucky. He, of course, at the beginning tried to hide what he had done and tried to create excuses, but at the end of the day, all the evidence was pointing at him, and he avoided the death penalty by confessing what he had done. He acknowledged responsibility for his actions, and he is life in prison without a possibility of parole. He managed to keep his life, and we have 2 families, his family and her family, none of which can believe that he did this. He has a mother and a father that can believe that he did this. And yet, an investigation into this family shows that there was quite a polemic, controversial relationship between Chris's mother and sister, but particularly her mother, his mother, against Shanann. There were the things got to one point that a few weeks before her murder, knowing that one of these little girls was allergic, she specifically put knots close to the little girl to taunt her. When the animosity against someone gets to the point where you don't even stop at the possibility of harming a little child, then that is real animosity. One of the things that Chris says in his confession is that he had resentment towards Shanann because she had taken him away from his family. Let's be grown-ups here. I married at almost 30 years of age, and my mom was not very happy. But it's the circle of life. It's the cycle of life. It's the order established by God. I mean, a man grows, a woman grows, and they have as much right to have their own lives as their parents did in their prime time. So for Chris to resent his wife, and for Chris's mother to resent Shanann because she took him away, it's ridiculous. Chris was an adult man. He was supposed to leave his mom and be united with his wife and establish a new family. And other people believe that because Shanann was a go-getter and she posted a lot and spoke a lot and was a leader and had success in her network marketing business, that made her a very aggressive, domineering woman. It's very easy to be a critic. I personally think that she was a very hardworking woman, that she was very supportive of her husband and her kids, that she had suffered much and that she had found something that had helped her, and she was eager to share with others because it had not only helped her health, but it had also given him the time flexibility for her to devote more time to her family. I also know that she tried to include Chris in as many of those recordings, and she tried to publicly recognize him every time she had an opportunity. And I believe she did it because she didn't want to leave him out. I also know that Chris seems to display some narcissistic traits. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional in medicine, but I used to have narcissistic traits myself. I'll speak about it in another video. And I see a lot of that. And for someone with narcissistic tendencies, no amount of support and encouragement is enough. I think people that are either narcissists or that display narcissist traits are like a bottomless pit. It doesn't really matter how much you pour into it, it's never enough. They get emotionally fed by someone, and when that person no longer meets those emotional needs, there is not a sense of I am going to sacrifice myself for this person, or I am going to be loyal, or I'm going to have an attitude of gratitude for everything this person and I have shared. No, if that person no longer meets my needs, I'm just going to say next. And it seems, based on some of the declarations that Chris has made and the overall picture, that is exactly what he did. He didn't care that this woman had shared with him almost 10 years. He didn't care that that woman was carrying his baby, that woman had had 2 little girls. Heck, he didn't even care that those 2 little girls had done nothing to him and trusted him fully. He took their lives. I'm not making this video to judge Chris Watts or Shanann or Chris's mother. I'm just here to say it's a very sad situation, and there's a lot of signs of things that if they had not happened, then we probably would not be facing this tragedy. I believe that God is the glue that has kept my marriage together, and He definitely is interested in being the glue that keeps your marriage together. I believe that when someone loves God, then they understand what love really is. The Bible actually says that men are to love their wives as Jesus loved the church and gave Himself for her. So when you learn and when you experience God's love, then you're able to love your wife, you're able to love your husband, and you're able to do it in a sacrificial way where it's not just about what you can give me, it's about what I can give you. You learn that neither of you is perfect, but if you work things out, if you make an effort, you can stay together in spite of. You learn that even if there's somebody else in the next corner that looks better, that's younger, that's prettier, that's fitter, you learn to be loyal. And you learn to deny yourself. And denying myself doesn't necessarily mean that I have to resolve myself to live in a loveless marriage. Absolutely not. What it means is that I will do something with my loveless marriage. See, it's very easy to give up, and it's very easy to find a lover, and it's very easy to find a different alternative when I place the sole responsibility for a failed relationship in the other person. But when I decide that marriage takes two and that the success of my marriage takes two, then I will not let my marriage die. I will do as much as it takes. Now, there are going to be instances where there's physical abuse, verbal and emotional abuse, where it is in God's will for someone to stay in a relationship like that, because God hates divorce, but He also hates for men to abuse women and children, right? Let's face it, there are going to be instances in which the only way out is a divorce. But that is not the majority of the cases. The majority of the cases is all about us being willing to compromise, being willing to communicate, and being willing to work hard, because marriage requires work. It is not self-sustaining. It needs to be sustained. Love is something that we can learn, and it's something that we can unlearn. It's like a plant. You water it, you fertilize it, it's gonna grow. You stop watering it, you stop fertilizing it, you allow, those poisonous grass to take over. I can't think of the word in English, sorry about that. That's gonna happen very often in my videos. It's gonna die. It's gonna swallow the life out of it. And infidelity is one of those. Is one of those weeds. That was the word, weeds. That's going to swallow a relationship, that is going to take the oxygen out of the relationship, that is going to become a big distraction, that is going to prevent someone from working in their relationship, which is precisely why it is in God's will for us to be unfaithful to one another. And if we do get to the point where we feel that there's absolutely no way, maybe, as I always say, some of you are not believers and some of you might not have the same set of values, and I totally respect that. And if we get to that point and we feel that there's no way, we feel that we've tried everything, then let's resort to a divorce. It's sad, it's not ideal, but it beats murder every time. So, let's just work in our relationships. Let's love our husbands, love our wives. Let's remember that marriage is not about me. It's about us. It's about a relationship. In the case of a believer, a man, a woman, and their God. In the case of people that decide not to be believer, a man and a woman. If you are attracted by someone and that someone is married, run the other way. There's plenty of people in this universe. There's no reason for you to destroy home. I have something to tell you. If that person betrays his wife or her husband for you, what will stop him or her from doing the same to you? What will? Is statistically correct. I recommend marital counseling also. It's a big help. My husband and I have had a fantastic marriage counselor that at some tough points in our relationship really helped us. And we still, once in a while, when we think that we're reaching an impasse or a difficult situation, because we're both very stubborn and strong and opinionated, we reach out for help. We have no problem reaching out for help. We also pray together. We try to pray together every day. It's very, very hard to stay mad with someone that you pray with every day. And we admit very openly that we don't have a perfect marriage, but it is an imperfect relationship that we are committed to. And so, my condolences to both families, the Watts family, because they've lost a child, and Shanann's family, because they've lost a daughter. And both families have lost the innocent lives of those two beautiful little girls, Cece and Bella, and a baby that was on his way, Nico. Let this be a cautionary tale for all of us. Let's look at our families. Look at your wife tonight. Look at your children. Hug them. Purpose in your heart that you're going to remain faithful and steadfast, that although you don't have a perfect family, it is your family and you're going to fight for it. All of Chris's illusions to leave his wife and his girls and start a new life with this other woman vanished when he decided to go the murder route and was caught by the police in spite of his attempts to hide his crime. And again, although not all divorces or separations or infidelities result in a murder, they do result in a lot of destruction. Ask yourself, is this really worth it? Am I willing to let this go for something that I don't even know it's going to work. We have a saying in Panama, in Spanish. It says that it's better the evil that you know, the evil that you know, that the good thing that you are still yet to confirm. The grass always looks greener from here. But once you walk through, I've met a few people, I work in human capital, and I've met a few people that have quit and have gone to other employers because they knew they could do better, and only to a few months later come and apply again. And some employers have accepted them back. Some of them have said, sorry, you left us, so go back to where you came from. Because the grass is not always greener. And heck, if your grass is not as green as it should be, water it, fertilize it, remove those weeds, work on it. Let's be courageous. Let's not be cowards. It is cowardice to walk away from a relationship. It is cowardice to say, it's over, without even trying. And if there's another person, you're really not trying. Let's not fool ourselves. Because if you are really trying, you can be seeing another person. They have mutually excluded. They exclude each other. If you are trying, you need to not have a plan B. If you have a plan B, you have already determined you are going to fail. There is this story about a captain that went into an island with his army. They needed to destroy the enemy. They arrived to the island, and the captain ordered the boats to be burned. Some of the soldiers reacted strongly and said, why are we doing that? And the captain said, because we are going to either win or we won't leave this island. Burn the boats. Burn them. Purpose to embrace, to love, and to cherish your family. It is my prayer that God will comfort both of these families and every individual, friends that have been deeply affected by this tragedy. Every time I see a report or something, I just intercede for Chris. I pray that he repents. Otherwise, I don't want to be in his shoes when he stands before God. He does say that he has found God, but there's so little repentance in his words. But hey, I'm not God. It just seems to be a lot about me, how people feel about me. There's a lot of regret as to how this tragedy has affected him, and very little regard for how his actions affected his wife. I think that is a very telltale sign of someone that has really embraced God, is that they recognize the wrong, they repent, they apologize, and they humble. I'm not seeing that yet in Chris Watts, but again, I'm not God, so time will tell, and most importantly, God will tell, because we can fool people, but we can't fool God. I'm going to close with this. There is a passage in the Bible that says that there is nothing hidden that will not come to light. What started as a fling for Chris Watts became a full-blown affair. Nicole was looking for wedding dresses because she thought this man was going to leave his wife and his girls and marry her. Instead, he killed them, and in so doing tarnished her own reputation and left her empty and definitely not wearing a bridal dress. Their relationship, the dreams that they had for a future together, evaporated as the lives of these precious people that were murdered evaporated also. There were a lot of secrets, but eventually they all came to light, and the darkness of these people's hearts has been revealed for all to see. Let's cherish and value what we have. Let's pray for these families and friends affected, and let's work in our relationships. Let's be loyal. Let's fight for our love. Let's maintain it, and if it's died, let's resurrect it. I welcome your comments. I welcome your ideas, your thoughts. And remember, even if you are not a believer, let's be polite and kind to one another. But I would love to hear back from you, to hear your reactions or any other comments that you have about this case or the words that I've shared. As always, it is my pleasure to share with you, and I am so grateful. I started 2 months ago to take care of this channel. I had been so busy working for my daughter's channel that I probably had less than 20 subscribers, and in just a month and a half I have grown to 70. It's not a lot, but it's a lot to me, because that means there's 50 of you that have enjoyed enough the content of this channel, my talk, which comes directly from my heart. You have enjoyed it enough to say, hey, I want to listen to this lady again. And that is an honor. My husband and I were just talking about what an honor it is that two broken people like us have the opportunity to share and to touch anybody. Even if we only touch one person, then that is an honor. And so it is my honor to have you as a friend, to share my thoughts with you. I look forward to hearing from you, to engage in dialogue. If you reply, I will reply back. We can disagree, but we'll do it with love and we'll do it with respect. Thank you for joining me today. And the new episode of Handmaid's Tale releases tomorrow, so I'll be back before you know it to react to that episode and to do my predictions as to episode 13. Until then, God bless you and be good.